Okay, let's get it. Black girl magic dripping. Yeah, she's on a mission. Keeping our culture lifted. Now you can watch and listen. Tammi Mac. Tammi Mac. Oh, what show is that? Tammi Mac show on Fox. So, Tammi Mac. Tammi Mac. Yeah. Who that? Tammi Mac. Tammi Mac. Hey, so you know it's Tammi Mac. Hey, Tammi Mac.
Welcome to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Hello, everybody. I am Tammi Mac. According to Freedom United, prison labor, or rather, prison labor, is work that is performed by incarcerated and detained people. Now, although not all prison labor is forced, inmates are behind bars. So the system appears to be a unique form of modern slavery because of its inherent power imbalance. And inmates have few avenues to challenge the system or any abuses they encounter. Free prison labor can be valuable, but it becomes exploitative when there are elements of force and the threat of punishment against inmates. Well, tonight, the business of being Black on the Tammi Mac Late Show is prison labor in America. Please welcome the New York Times bestselling author, Shaka Senghor. Hi, Shaka.
Hey, how are you tonight, Tammi?
Just fine. Thank you for asking. Political content creator Marquise Green is here with us. Hi, Marquise.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're enjoying your night, and I can't wait to get started. I'm happy to be here.
All right. Well, let me hurry up and get you started then, Marquise. And entrepreneur Rontrell Adams is with us tonight as well. Hi, Rontrell.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. We traditionally start the Tammi Mac Show with the same question every night. How can somebody ask the same question every night? I can. And I get different answers every night too. But that question is ultimately why, gentlemen? Why should Black people care? And so the question tonight is, why should Black people care about prison labor in America? Let's start with you, Shaka.
The reason Black people should care is because we're the most affected by the reality of mass incarceration. Thank you for actually having this conversation. I think it's one of the most important in our community and one we haven't had enough of on a granular level. When you're talking about free labor inside prison, you actually got to really understand how this prison operates and the roots of what it extended from, which was the 13th Amendment, which created a loophole for the reemergence of a free labor class. And so when you look at what happens inside prison, as in my case, when I went to prison, the first job that I had was 17 cents an hour. And you talk about whether it's forced labor or punitive labor, the reality is it's all forced labor, because if you don't work, you actually get punished. You get sent to solitary, you lose whatever other privileges you may or may not have had. And this is problematic in the sense of this. There's 100% employment rate in prison for Black men and brown men and women. But then you get out here and you look at the numbers where it's extremely difficult to find employment, and you can recognize how problematic that is.
Yeah, Rontrell, why should Black people care about prison labor in America?
Well, because the prison system, we make up a majority in the prison system. And you think about it, when these people are released back into society, there's a lot of resources that aren't available to people that you can work in the prison for however long your sentence is. And when you're released, it's like that work employment, that employment history doesn't count.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah, most people, when they work, they can put it on their resume. I don't know how that works out for someone to put their prison skills and their prison labor onto a resume and expect a welcoming, welcoming open arms into our company. Right. Marquise, why should Black folk care about prison labor in America?
We talk about these things as though they're the effects, the things we can see with our eyes. But I feel like if we want to get more Black people to care about prison labor in America, it has to come through the effects and the stigma of how we carry ourselves in everyday conversation, how certain police officers view oh, you're black and you're threatening or you're a menace. That social stigma carries with us, and it carries into our educational systems. It makes teachers view us differently. It makes higher academia view us differently. If we continue to ignore the problem, it doesn't just affect us to the point where we understand, oh, we're more the target for being a repeat offender or having that mark against us. It goes into, well, how do I approach the force in a way that shows them that I can be black in America and not have to live up to your standards, as opposed to, really trying to, I want to put this in a nice way, really trying to.
You don't have to be nice on this show, Marquise. This is the business of being black. So say it with your black.
They have this idea that they want us to assimilate into white culture, and they want us to be more pleasant. Oh, you're one of the good ones. Oh, I don't have to worry about you. I'd let you date my daughter. All these things really funnel down into, once you end up in the prison system, are there ways to even get out of it? People concern themselves with the labor aspect, the want and the desire for us to have better rehabilitation programs. But if that is going to be a consistent thing that people can profit off of, that prison systems are made for, how do you think they get those people in there? And if that is something that says, oh, well, I've been working in this place, or I've been doing this thing for 15 years and I've had a clean record and I've never bothered anybody, it's never going to come to me. And that makes you an automatic target. Yeah. Because, and it's really hard to not feel like it's something that you can't care about, because it can affect you. It will affect you.
It does affect us. Absolutely. Without a doubt, affects us, and it affects America as well. And I like that you brought up the fact that it's the things that happen outside of prison that carry on into prison. And Shaka talked about the 13th Amendment and how it makes it legal to have slaves in prison. And I'm being mean about that because obviously that's not exactly what it says, but that's exactly what it's doing. It's keeping people slaves in prison. It's enslaving people. And before
Actually,
I go
Tammi,
there,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Rontrell.
I was about to say, just to piggyback off of what Shaka said, I heard him say that his first prison job, he made 17 cents an hour. In Texas, it's actually slave labor. You don't get paid anything at all. And I mean, when you're released, you get a $50 check, and they're like, start there. And
that's it. Shaka, you did prison time where?
So I served a total of 19 years in 19 different prisons throughout Michigan. And I served 7 of those years was in solitary confinement. And so, the reality is, what a lot of people don't understand about America's prison system is it's numerous prison systems. For every state, there's multiple prisons. And then you also add the federal prison system, which is very different. But my time was spent in state prison in Michigan.
And Rontrell, you did time as well?
Yes, ma'am. I did 11 years. I was sentenced to 16 years. I did 11 in the Texas State Penitentiary.
That's my hometown, Texas, Houston.
Yep.
It could be a dangerous state for a Black man, I have to admit. I mean, you don't pay your child support, they sending you to prison.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Marquise, you also have been?
No, I have not. I've only sadly spent time in bookings, but my situation was
bookings.
Yeah, twice actually.
Okay.
It's small, but it actually, it's funny. Just to even get on the topic of, that's why I kind of care about this as much as I do, because what ended up happening with my situations is it ended up harming jobs that I had already taken in. And the reasons why I was taken in were for superfluous reasons. Matter of fact, to link into the thought I just had, it was a bullshit. It was just a really bad reason. It was just a really bad reason.
I think I lost you, Marquise. So what are you saying?
I'm sorry. So they spent. You asked if I spent any time.
You said no, but you said you had bookings.
But I had bookings, and the reasons for those bookings were very. I got picked up because I was threatened with a gun by a police officer and I ran away. And it made me think about the point I had made earlier, which is these things affect us in that way. I clean record. I went to college. I was looking for film locations, and a white officer just didn't like that I was in the neighborhood that I was, and I had never been there, so there wasn't people I could go around and vouch for and stuff like that. And it just made me think, like, yeah, how do they? And I lost a wedding out of that. I had a major chunk of my career after that take a major hit because of that one wedding and the bad reviews that I got. And it's like, well, I didn't go to prison, but I ended up losing out a ton of money and almost was homeless just due to somebody having a bad day in authority. Like
it's interesting you go there, because we got to be happy that you're alive today. Normally you run away, you get a gun pointed at you. We don't see you until your funeral. Right. Shaka, talk about the history of prison labor in this country, Shaka.
Yeah, I mean, it dates back to, the 13th Amendment, the 13th Amendment, which was designed to abolish technically the enslavement of our ancestors, actually created a loophole and said that no one should be subject to involuntary servitude except for those duly convicted of a crime. And so when you look at who actually controls the prison, who invests, especially in private prisons, you start to see this very distinct pattern of people going back to prison for very superficial reasons. Don't show up to your parole officer on time, you return to prison. You drop a dirty urine, you return to prison instead of treatment. So there's so many different things. There's like literally 40,000 collateral consequences of having a felony. And because there's a great profit margin, when you think about being able to hire somebody for $1.50 an hour to manufacture whatever your goods are compared to $15 to $20 an hour, the margins are astronomical. And there's a lot of mainstream companies that have participated in these industries over the years. In most recent times, a lot of these things have come to light due to the work of some incredible organizations, Anti-Recidivism Coalition, hashtag Cup 50 Reform Alliance, and many more organizations who have been doing this work consistently for a long time. And it's one of the reasons we've been able to have these conversations. Years ago, you couldn't have a conversation on a major platform about incarceration unless you were talking about how to incarcerate people. And let's be real, there's a lot of people who have been voted into office, who have been celebrated, that have been complicit in driving margins up, have taken advantage of the reality of these kickbacks for their particular state, whether it's with the phone industry or the food industry that actually serves institutions on a national level.
Yeah, you mentioned how these are these ridiculous reasons why you go back to prison. It immediately made me think of Meek Mill popping that wheelie and going back to prison for all of those years. And then we find out later that the problem was with the judge, and the judge was a Black woman. But I also want to know, what would happen if there were no free labor in prison? How would that transform the prison system? We're going to talk about it when we come back on the Tammi McAlate Show on Fox Soul. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Tammi McAlate Show on Fox Soul, where tonight the business of being Black is prison labor in America. Please welcome the New York Times best-selling author, Shaka Senghor, political content creator, Marquise Green, and entrepreneur, Rontrell Adams. Now, before we left, I said I wanted to get into the prison system without free labor. I don't know if I'm looking through rose-colored shades or however they say that, but I'm interested in knowing how the prison system would play out if there were no free labor, or, I don't want to be non-factual here. Sometimes there is paid labor, but Shaka has said he was paid, 17 cents?
Yeah. Yes. First job was 17 cents. But I think you raise a great point. And I don't think that prisons would exist in the form that they exist in now, especially within the parole and probation departments, which send so many people back. So recidivism rates are like upwards of 70%, which means that people get out and come back to prison, right? And there's a reason for that. First of all, it's hard to get employed when you get out, hard to get housing, and a whole host of other things that you're denied, which means that sometimes people have to go back to the lifestyles that led them down that path in the first place. Then there's the technical violations. And again, it's driven by this motive that you have this free class of labor that exists in this environment. And I think those things would dramatically change. I mean, and there's models of it all throughout the country. As someone who's done extensive work in criminal justice space, I've been to prisons in other countries. I've been to prisons in London. I've been to prisons in Germany, Ghana, and a few other places. And it's very different from the reality here in America.
I heard they in Sweden they have prison. The prison cells look like college dormitories.
As a matter of fact, yes, I do extensive studying on the prison system in Norway, and Norway's I'm gonna always mess up that word. Sorry, that's gonna be me. You got that word on lock. That's you. The Norway system actually treats you like a human being, and it makes the prison rehabilitation system so much easier because they gain skills inside of there. They don't feel like they're caged inside a box. I was just watching a documentary on one prisoner who's free to come and go as he pleases. He gets 2 days where he just gets to go wherever he wants, and he always comes back. And there's college courses you can take, and there's trade schools you can go to, and it builds this.
Marquise, we have those systems in some of the prisons in the States. But I'll tell you what happens with that. In the time that I served, I was able to get my drafting technology certification, and in college also. But what they don't tell you is that the things that they offer in there, a lot of those jobs don't really hire felons. So you can go to school, but it's all back to what Shaka was saying. It's about the dollar, because when you're going to school in there, they're making money. So it's not even about the rehabilitation. It's about continuously lining pockets, because why would you offer me an education or a trade that I'm not going to be able to use when I come home?
So I've had a show on the prison system before, and it blew me away to find out that it's not just the prison system that benefits from the dollars that go into it. And I don't even know why I wouldn't think about it, but I guess because the average person just wouldn't think that there are other ways for other corporations to make money.
Yes.
Because of the prison system. And I don't think people realize that. So when you say you're getting an education, but the education is not for your benefit, it's the benefit of those companies to continue to line their pockets. Be more specific about that, Rontrell. What do you mean when you say that, so I can have our viewers understand that we're talking about if there are textbooks in the prison, the people that are making the textbooks are getting paid off of that. If there are teachers in the prison, those teachers are getting paid. If there are food vendors, Snicker bars, or whatever food vendors that are there, the people, those companies are getting paid. Is that right?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the last part, Tammi.
I said, is that right? Am I in the right direction there?
That's totally correct. So you have small community colleges and universities that get kickbacks, for having virtual classes. They'll give virtual classes, and you'll actually get, certificates and associate's degrees from those universities. But it's really not in a field that would actually help. So if there was more research done into finding so the way I ended up being a truck driver, and this was the last thing that I thought I was going to be doing when I came home, because I'm pretty sure with Shaka being in so many different places, he can attest to this. Most of the guys are like, when they release, they want to, go work in the oil field or go work in a plant or drive trucks. And in the time that I was there, I just didn't want to be in that same rigmarole of, well, this is the only way that I can make it when I come home without doing something illegal. And actually the blessing, it turned out to be the way that I could find my financial freedom, so, and there are different trades, they'll have, you can get your CDL in Texas prisons, but you have to be a S1 trustee, which is like the hardest thing to be. It's not like everybody gets this opportunity.
Shaka, I hear Rontrell talking about the difficulties, and you mentioned it too, of coming out of prison and being able to survive basically without going back, because it sounds like the money that's being made in prison is the going back to prison and the revolving door that the prison system continues to have. So 19 years, however, do you end up a best-selling author? Like,
Yeah, so I could say I was really fortunate to be literate when I went into prison and to meet some of the most incredible mentors in the world who were men who were actually serving life sentences and saw something redeemable in me. And those men introduced me to literature through writers like Donald Goines and Iceberg Slim. And those books actually opened up my world to reading about Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey. And Malcolm became the model for transformative thinking. The man that I am today is not a result of the system. It's a result of the choices I made while I was within the system. If it was left up to the system, I would have never got out of prison, or I would have been back in prison. So when I came home, I had actually started a company while I was in prison, published my first book, and then I got sued by the prison for the cost of my incarceration, which is another form of enslavement. So I can tell you exactly how much it cost for my incarceration because they sent me an itemized list of each day, each prison, and what the cost was. Fortunately, I had the legal experience to navigate that situation and the fortitude to get out and hustle.
Hold on, Shaka. I hate to stop you, Shaka.
Yeah,
I hate
all good. Yeah.
But I'm sorry, you just went straight over my head with that. Yeah. Did I hear you say the prison system sued you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I started
in prison.
Yeah. So basically what they did is I started a publishing company. And as I was going through the cover design with my business partner, they thought I had landed a book deal, and their intentions was to take all proceeds from my book and apply it to the cost of my incarceration, which they itemized and broke down prison by prison, day by day, and averaged out to like a little bit, probably like a short of $1 million. At that time, I had about 15 years or so in. And so the reality is I know exactly how much it costs per day for me to be in prison. And when it was like averaged out to be like $165 per day, the cost of my incarceration. And so, to look at that list, I remember getting that list and looking at it like, wow, this is what my life is worth. And it's one of the things I use as a mentoring tool when I ask young guys, like, what do you think your life is worth compared to what the state thinks your life is worth? And so, coming out of prison, I had the focus to just hustle, and I sold books out of the trunk of my car. Literally everywhere you can imagine, clubs, bars, strip clubs, Jehovah's Witness pull up to the door at their watchtower. I got a book for them, so it was just literally that entrepreneurial spirit. And the reason I bring that up is because I personally believe and personally know that there's a level of entrepreneurial genius that exists inside prison, and that we have a responsibility to access that and make sure that people have employment opportunities when they're released from prison. Otherwise, you can't complain when people go back if you're boxing them out of society as a whole. And I want to add one quick point. Marquise mentioned something about the Norway prisons and how they deal with their citizens, right? When I was in Germany, I read their constitution, and it's embedded in their constitutions that they have to treat people in prison with the dignity and respect that they would treat any other citizen. And they have to ensure that they have access to re-entering society healthy and whole. And the reason being is because they have a national connection to those men and women. The men and women in prison look like their family members. What happened in America is because of the racist reality of our history, we don't have that disconnect. We don't have that.
White people aren't supposed to be in prison in the first place. It was designed specifically for us.
Absolutely. Right. And because we've been othered, right? Because we've been othered and we've been identified and labeled in such a way, and we don't have full access to citizenship in a way that other people do, we don't have that same, kind of constitutional fortitude to ensure that people are treated with dignity and respect while they're incarcerated and prepared for life outside. I came home
it's kind of hard to be treated with dignity and respect in prison when they value your life outside of prison less than $165 a day, I must say.
Absolutely.
I just want to clear this up, and for me and the viewers, when the prison system sued you, was it specifically because they thought you had written a book inside the prison?
Yeah. So what happened? They thought I actually had got a book deal, which would have came with what they thought was a significant amount of money. What they didn't know is that I actually started a book company, which was a different revenue model. And so because I controlled that company, I ensured that it wasn't profitable until I left prison, because at that point, the lawsuit was no longer binding. It was only binding as long as I was in prison. And so, but it doesn't even just extend to that. If you are the benefactor of an insurance policy, while you're incarcerated, they can sue you and take away all the money from your insurance policy that your loved one left you behind to apply that to the cost of your incarceration.
So do other prisoners get an invoice when they leave? Or is this just if they think you got some money that they need?
It's only if they think you have some money.
Wow is all I can say. Let me go to our soulmates. They're like, Tammy, don't forget about us. I'm sorry, I'm interested in the damn topic tonight, y'all. Let's go into this chat room and see what our soulmates are saying here, guys. Okay, Tammy Black says, say it like you're Black. The prison system is an entire different world. Deborah says, we as Black people should boycott these companies that have investments in prisons. Stop spending Black dollars and see what happens. Is that something that is likely, Marquise? Is that something that is possible if we as a collective decided to do that?
I hate to be the person that says this.
The Debbie Downer?
I always am. But so the prison system is repeating the system of racial and financial inequality that has already existed since this country's founding. For us to be able to have a general strike would actually take out a lot of the small businesses and the economic drive that we have when certain companies and corporations build up shop here. There is a very it's very hard to grasp the situation from full on, like if everybody had a strike and we spend our money at Black owned businesses, we wouldn't be putting it. The corporations that have ties up in the prison system are so vast, and it would take I just don't feel like, with all the issues between socioeconomic justice that we're facing right now and the rise of fascism and white nationalism in America, that would be a point that we would be able to focus on. Because as I've said before, how do you expect the Black community to get up and pull yourself up by your bootstraps or just stop being poor if the entire community is drained of resources? Where are we buying the buildings? Where are we buying the shops? Other people, other corporations, white people come and gentrify the neighborhood. They put the wealth in there. And then other people start thinking, well, maybe you should just allow more white people to move in your houses. That would be easier. You really have to focus your energy, and we'd have to find specific corporations to attack. You can't really do it from a full stop coalition. You have to put some time and energy into that. I
have to disagree with you on that.
I was gonna push back a little bit too, Marquise.
Yeah, here's why though. There's a such thing as called corporate responsibility. And I think we as consumers have a responsibility to hold corporations accountable. Now, how we do that doesn't necessarily transcend to a strike, but that social reality now where we have control of social norms, we're shifting the culture based on cancel culture itself. We have an opportunity to cancel a lot of these companies, and it has been done. And we have begun to hold a lot of these companies accountable. And it's due to the tremendous and incredible work of a legion of criminal justice reformers throughout this country. As I mentioned in some of those organizations earlier, the things that we've been able to get done is unheard of considering what's happened in just the last 5 or 6 years. And it's because of the will of the people that recognize the injustices and the inequities that take place in it's a reality. What's problematic and what has been problematic for a long time is that we've kept our distance from our brothers and sisters in prison up until recent times when it's become kind of cool. Now we got cool people talking about it. We got credible messengers, people who are actually in prison that have come out and been extremely successful, which means we can get a different audience now. I can talk to people now today that I couldn't talk to the first day I walked out of prison. And it's because people respect success. And so with that level of responsibility that many of us have garnered, we've been able to move mountains. We've been able to move companies to actually rethink their policies, rethink the way that they're approaching exploitation, because they can't conceal it anymore. For years, they was able to hide behind it. They was able to downplay it because they built this fear-based war on drug campaign, which, several administrations have been complicit in, and the media was complicit in. Now, it's almost unheard of for a politician to be able to leverage punitive approaches to criminal justice because of the hard work that's went into it. And so now companies are having to step up to the plate, be more accountable, and recognize we're not coming to play with them. Period.
We're not coming to play. Hold that thought, Marquise. Okay. Deborah says kickbacks MTA. I'm not sure what MTA is. Kickbacks MTA in New York gets money for hiring felons. I know because my friends who have felonies work there. Y'all are agreeing with that, right? Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And some states make you pay for being in prison. In Virginia, they make you pay for being in prison. You know that about that one too, Marquise. Okay, we're gonna take a quick break. But we're not going to keep you in prison too long because we're going to let you out of these commercial breaks when we come back on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul, where tonight the business of being Black is prison labor in America. I know, Shaka, you told me that you still have your paperwork from prison, and Rontrail, you said you still have your paperwork from prison. I would imagine that if you were in prison and you had no intentions of going back, you would want no remnants of what that experience was. But Rontrail, why do you keep your paperwork? It's almost like you've been to the military and you're keeping your dog tags.
In a way, Tammy, it is a dog tag. It's a reminder. It's a reminder of first of all, it's a reminder for me of where I never want to be again. So I keep it, and sometimes I'll take it, I keep it in my wallet, and sometimes I'll take it out and I'll look at it. And the picture that's on there is a completely different person from who I am now. I don't even recognize myself in that ID picture.
Wow. And you're no longer on parole either.
No, ma'am. I finished parole in 2018.
Wow. USA Today wrote an article about a Facebook post that stated after the passing of the 13th Amendment, more than 800,000 Blacks were part of the convict leasing system. Or re-enslavement through the prison system. What is convict leasing and how is it enforced?
So convict leasing is similar to what's still happening in prisons now, where people who are incarcerated actually work in communities. And back then, as you can imagine, they had people go back and work those same farms that their ancestors left from. And so that's the thing about this system that, this has ancestral memory attached to it. Like this was a continuation of what happened to our ancestors. And I'll say that with this caveat, right? There is a personal accountability that I've accepted long ago for decisions I made, right? However, there's a systemic reality that when you think about who ends up in prison and how they end up in prison, there's structural breakdowns across several systems, right? Our school system, which is a clear pipeline into incarceration. In fact, when I got out of prison, I began to mentor in schools that was in worse condition than any prison I've ever been in. And so that spoke volumes to me about how we think about kids in our communities. And so when you think about what happened after the Emancipation Proclamation, there was a reinvention of, enslavement of our ancestors, which was, included the leasing of men and women from prisons to work those same farms.
Wow. Marquise?
Yeah. It's even, I like talking about the movie Life when it comes to this part of it.
With Martin Lawrence and Eddie Murphy?
Yes. And not only does prison labor and the system set up. So first I want to say, I'm glad that you mentioned that you did have personal accountability and you accepted your decisions, but you understand that there's also a structural land point that might have led you in that direction that wasn't, your immediate plans. I feel like that's a general case for the majority of people. We put people up in situations in which they have to respect authority without ever getting that respect back. And inside of our communities, inside of our homes, there are broken homes. There are people who don't receive the type of love that they might need or the type of attention that they might need. Couple that with people not even having the training or the wherewithal or the empathy to understand other people's viewpoints and how they grew up. And you end up just repeating the same things over and over and over again. It is this constant want, this desire to be better, but be in a system that doesn't even care because you're automatically labeled that. So when it comes to the movie Life, I always think about the fact that those two guys were in a situation unbeknownst to them. They had nothing to do with anything. It was just a random occurrence. and they ended up sending out here, and it caused certain other problems, and they started to separate from their own realities. It became like prison is the only thing I know. So the notion of, hey, we're gonna send you out here to do some work, you get some fresh air. It's like, wow, that's literal slavery. You're telling me I get the freedom, but I'm still in the shackles. I get to do the work, I get to smell the grass, and then you're gonna
it
put me
reminds
back.
me of it reminds me of the prisoners you see on the side of the road picking up the trash on the side on the highways. That's what I thought about. Is that a sample of convict leasing, or am I in the wrong? Not really.
I'm not. I'm not too sure, but I would agree that is, because however when we talk about certain terms and we try to like say, oh, from 1865 to 1965 there was this, and then from 1965 to 1981 there was this. They're just the same forms. They're just repeated. And I feel like it's to assuage the white audience. See, it's not that bad. They did a really bad crime, but we still give them time to be out and be free. They reframe what prison looks like, and they make it to be this, you did the crime, now you do the time, well, look, but everybody's the same.
Even the size of America has been reframed. So this whole, the more the years go on, the more we all find out we've been living a lie. Rontrell, Shaka talks about school being the pipeline to prison. Do you believe that?
And I was going to ask him also, what age level are you talking about when you say school is the pipeline to prison, Shaka? I was just trying to get some clarification from you.
Yeah, so all of the data suggests that the metrics around where a child is at in third grade will dictate their fate in regards to ending up in jail or in prison. And then working inside the prison as a tutor, when you begin to look at the test scores and realize that the literacy rates are about third grade, the educational rates are about third grade, but even more so than that, when you actually go into the schools, I'm from Detroit, I live in LA now, but I'm from Detroit. And when I actually came home from a prison in Detroit that looked incredibly different from the first schools I went into in terms of the quality. And then you see what actually is happening in the schools, the over-policing, the adultifying of kids, the uniforms that mirror the uniforms of correctional officers that the security guards wear. So psychologically, there's kind of like this institutionalized connectivity that exists between these institutions, but it doesn't stop there though. It's in our healthcare system, right? As I mentioned, I'm fully accountable for the decisions I made. But when I think back to the 17-year-old kid I was when I got shot, and I went to a hospital that processed me through as if I was in the factory and sent me right back to the community without treatment for PTSD or even acknowledging that something would be different after that traumatic event inside of me, that's a structural breakdown that with clear evidence of the outcome is likely to produce. If you traumatize a kid, there's likely that kid will go on and traumatize somebody else. And so these structural things are interconnected. And I just want to say this as we're talking to our people, because there's kind of two things at play here, right? There's this systemic reality, right? And it's kind of called like, it's like us against the gods, that's the system. But then there's the personal responsibility that we have as a community to lean into this space. We live in this world of like social media, super woke, conscious people, right? Conscious activism has become social currency. There is no more important fight than the fight to end mass incarceration, because that is ground zero for all the other iterations of what we're fighting against when we're talking about injustice and inequality.
Well, have you ever thought about this, Shaka? I understand exactly what you're saying about the school system being a pipeline, but have you ever thought about the demographics of where are most prisons located? In rural white areas.
Absolutely.
And, when you're an inmate, you're a ward of the state. So that means that demographic area that you're incarcerated in, now you're considered a resident of that area. So no matter where you're from, so now when you think about things as far as voter rights, and as far as where dollars are being put, well, when you do a census, these areas have more numbers than they really have because the system is there, the prison is there. So now these people are counted in those areas. So now when you talk about delegates, these places get more delegates because they have a bigger population. When they actually don't, it's a prison population.
Yeah, yeah. We're going to take a quick break and come right back on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Great points. Great points. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul, where tonight the business of being Black is prison labor in America. The New York Times bestselling author is here, Shakur Senghor. Political content creator Marquise Green is here, and entrepreneur Rontrell Adams. We were talking about how these corporations benefit from prison labor and the prison system. I did I say shock? I feel like I said shaka wrong, but
It's
what did
all
I
good.
say?
Yeah, it's all
Thinking
good.
about Tupac. Apparently, I was thinking about Tupac, who himself has had a little prison experience.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why it crossed my mind. Please accept my apology, Shaka.
That's all good.
I'm wondering if these corporations put back into the Black community.
Oh, I can answer that with some
All
numbers.
right, let's go.
I can answer that with some numbers and some personal experience.
Okay, we're gonna break our receipts and facts up in here, Marquis. Okay.
As of now, when it comes to return rates on like corporations and the amount of industrialization in smaller communities, like in my community of Harlem, I just got a Target mall with a Costco. Total amount spent on all of these projects is $113 billion. The only amount generated through revenue that are put actually into like developing housing, certain projects, after school programs, other extracurriculars, opportunities, job opportunities, et cetera, non grata, has only been, this number is so painful, 7.9 billion.
Oh, okay. I'm like, can I afford it? Because it sounds like it's going to be painful. Say that number again. I'm sorry, I spoke over you.
So it's okay. I believe, I'm sorry, the number is actually 114 billion for all of these projects across the coasts, both coasts, and the amount put back in is only 7.1 billion. Yeah, 7.1 billion. Yeah, let me get that right. Yes, 7.1 billion. The reason for that is because, and this goes back to what we had mentioned before, there are tax codes in places, and we're all aware of the tax system, how the ultra wealthy abuse it. When it comes to these communities and them actually putting money back in, they're actually the funneling reasons for gentrification to become hyper-started. It makes the neighborhood more attractive, which raises the property values. They don't do anything to, okay, now that we're here, there's rent control in this area and we only hire from this area. No, they do hire further out. They try to make a point of it. Like I know Target makes a point of it. Whenever we put up a new one, we hire from the community. And that's where I feel like our voices are actually being heard. That's where the only spend Black dollars, that's where that is having an effect. But as far as actual return rates, it's so minimal that Black-owned businesses could actually convene to buy a franchise, and they would spurn $57 billion more than the current amount that is put into the communities, because they actually go into the homes. They actually go back to the neighborhood and they spend it in other stores. These places take their employees and they hire out super far. You have to travel. They pay very low, close to minimum wage or a living wage that it should be. And it creates yet again another system of like, well, I'm glad that they're here and I'm glad that we're getting new buildings and we're getting new malls and we're getting new, shops or whatever, but everybody's still poor.
Well, what's interesting to me is that they're giving $7.1 billion, because I would have thought the number would have been $10 to zero. So I have to say I'm shocked with that number at all. Gloria Brown Marshall, an associate professor of constitutional law at John Jay College of Criminal Justice and a former civil rights attorney, said prisoners are looked at as commodities. It's all about how the private prisons can make the most money. Can we say that's accurate, Rontrell?
It's very accurate. If you look at Texas prison, the inmates actually cultivate the crops, the same crops that they eat, they cultivate. The clothes that they wear, they have a sew station where they're making all of the clothes, the laundry, from the boxers to the socks. Everything that touches your body is inmate produced, and it's free labor. So it goes back to when you ask what would happen if inmates were paid to work. well, it would crumble their system, because now, even if you're incarcerated, you can still take care of you can provide as a man for your family. A lot of families, a lot of home dynamics are changed, because when the male is there, it's like, well, I need to do something because you're gone, and how am I going to take care of myself? And that ultimately breaks up marriages, keeps fathers away from their kids. There are a lot of dynamics to it.
So
we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll come right back on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Shaka, there was a point you wanted to make. I want you to make that point before we talk about your books, your writings.
Yeah, thank you so much. And the point actually segs into my writings and the reason I wrote the book. One of the things that I think about often, especially as it relates to the Black community, is how we identify our brothers and sisters in prison. A lot of the language that we utilize has been adopted by people with ill intentions. So prisoners, convicts, felons. And it's kind of like that same model of othering when they called our ancestors slaves. Our ancestors weren't slaves, they were enslaved. People aren't prisoners and convicts and felons. There are people who may have followed the law or been wrongfully convicted. And the reason that I say that is because when I wrote my book, Righting My Wrongs, Life, Death, Redemption in American Prison, I really wanted people to understand who's exactly in prison. I was an honor roll scholarship student with all the possibilities in the world, but there was a series of things that happened. And I found that to be true throughout my incarceration, where I met so many incredible philosophers and writers and teachers and entrepreneurs, and their fathers, their dads, their uncles. They're contributing even from behind the walls to their community, and to a great degree once they're released from prison. And I want our community to be mindful that these are our brothers and sisters.
That's a great point.
Behind the walls.
Yeah, so, that's a great point. And also your book, Letters to the Sons of Society. So we can get those books on Amazon and anywhere books are sold, right?
Absolutely. New York Times bestseller, Righting My Wrongs, Letters to the Sons of Society, coming January 2022. It's actually, the pre-order link is up. And it's a book about my son who's on that cover. I'm actually wearing this merch today. I got a 9-year-old entrepreneur. So
that's all right. Oh, look at you, boy. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Ron Trail, you got anything coming down the pipeline we need to know about, and where can we find out about it?
So right now, I'm in the building stages. Me and my cousin started a trucking company. So we're building this right now. It's 2 trucks. In the near future, like, we're advancing fast. So in the near future, as we grow, what I want to do to help reach back is I'm also a trainer. I can train people to get their CDL. And so what I want to do is I want to reach back to the brothers that have a felony, that have been incarcerated, and try to make sure I'm offering that job opportunity.
I hate to cut you off there, but we see you in your truck right now, so we know you're going to make that happen. You're doing your thing. Marquise, we got 10 seconds here. The paradigm shift.
Yes, that is me on Twitch. I do political commentary about conservatives and Black issues in America, and just combating kind of the thoughts that we all deal with on a day-to-day basis, and how we can be better individuals to one another and to help defeat the system that we live under.
Thank you so much, Marquise. Thank you, Shaka. And thank you, Ron Trail, for being on the show tonight. Right now, everybody, it's time to spend a little money, because that's what they do in America. All your labor is so that you can go and spend your money, honey. But listen, on the Tammi Mac Late Show and here at Fox Soul, we want you to spend less of that money. So we give you Fox deals coming up next. And until tomorrow, it's a blessing to be in your box on Fox Soul. Bye, y'all.